Okay, hello everyone. I just did a long introduction and explained about the webinar and what we're going to cover in this lesson, and then realized that my microphone was still on mute. So I'm really sorry about that. So we're going to do this week is look at how you convert newcomers into regular members of the community. What we did during week one was we looked at how you grow an existing community. How do you get more people to visit the platform? We looked at the different channels towards achieving that. And what we're going to do this week is look at when people do arrive at your platform, when they do visit your page, how do you convert them into regular members of the community so they're still there, they're still active, and they're still participating 6 months later? So the aims of today's lessons are threefold. First, we want to identify the key conversion metrics. And by the key conversion metrics, we mean what do you have to look for at each stage of the conversion funnel to know where members are dropping out, and how do you get that sort of data? We want to be able to highlight where members are dropping out of that funnel. We want to make it really, really clear so you know where to focus your efforts. And when you have got that information, when you do know how to focus your efforts, then you can design and test an intervention to improve the conversion funnel. So the problem with most of the things that we teach is that there's often very sparse data on the topic. This isn't the case for this one. There is more data on what converts newcomers into regular members of the community than anything else that we cover during this course. So some relevant statistics here. First, in a study of one online community, Aguelo et al., I love academic referencing, by the way, showed that 68% of members in a Usenet community only posted one message. This was also supported by a community of developers, where 54% of developers, people that had joined the community, only made one contribution. So what we can see very early on is that it's clear that a lot of community members are dropping out in two places. They're dropping out between that point where they register and then they make their first contribution, and they're dropping out between that point where they make that first contribution and then make their second contribution. So what we need to know is that to keep people participating in the community, to keep people active in an online community, we need to switch people from satisfying their informational needs to satisfying their social needs. A lot of people will initially visit a community to satisfy their informational needs. And we need to change that. We need to get them socialized. We need to get them interacting with other people so they keep coming back to visit the community. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of organizations make is that they keep people in that mindset where they think they only want people to visit when they want information. And the issue with that is if people only visit when they want information, that means they usually only visit when there's a problem that they have. And that might not be that frequently. That might be once a day, it might be once a week, it might be once a month, or it might be never again. But if you're developing a community where you're catering to someone's social needs, their needs to interact with other people in the community, then you're building a community where people are likely to interact with each other every day. This is a peer group that you're developing. This is where people are going to visit your community to see what's new. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. When it comes to converting newcomers into regulars, the key thing that decides if they will become a regular is their level of interest in that topic. We'll come to some things that you can do to influence that. But if you remember back in the last module that we did, one of the things we learned was it's very important to get that initial concept right. It's very important to make sure that you're developing the right sort of community. It's important to make sure that you're developing a community that closely matches the concept of the people that you're trying to reach. And if you get that right, it's far easier to convert these newcomers into regulars. Another thing that's critically important is the responses and feedback to their initial contribution. As we covered just now, we lose so many members after someone has made their first contribution because the response that they get is too slow, or it doesn't contain the right sort of information, or it doesn't prompt someone to make another contribution. It doesn't ask a question. And so it's very important to focus on that initial response to a member's first contribution. And finally, people do need that feedback. For most community members, we initiate what we call a 24-hour rule. We initiate a rule where everyone should get a response to their initial contribution within the first 24 hours. Any later than that is too long. So when we're looking at how we convert newcomers into regulars, we look at it as a funnel. So we look at it where it's broken down by each different stage. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the marketing funnel that tends to come up quite frequently. And this is basically a equivalent to this. So first, people will hear about the community, and they visit. These are the visitors. These are people that haven't registered for the community yet. The next step is that they find something they like, and then they register for the community. Then they make their first contribution and become a participant. And then after they've been participating after around 6 months, and that is kind of an arbitrary number, but it's a number that's quite useful just for knowing who's like to stay as regulars. And then finally, some of them will become volunteers. We're not going to go into volunteers during this lesson, but what we are going to do is try and diagnose and break down where people are dropping out during this conversion funnel. So I don't know what data you guys have on you right now, but if you do, it might be interesting to go through this. So the first thing we want to know to analyze if the community has a healthy number of visitors. Or to take this back, let's imagine if you look at this funnel here, that you aren't getting many newcomers that are becoming regulars. You can break it down by each of these stages and identify exactly where members are dropping out. So if we begin at the first stage, we want to know the number of unique new visitors. The very first thing we want to do when we're trying to diagnose a newcomer to regular ratio, when we're trying to work out why our communities have or don't have a healthy level of growth, is to look at the number of unique new visitors. The reason why we do that is first we need unique visitors because people can visit the community many times. And this is all data that's available via Google Analytics. And then we want to know the people that are visiting the community for the first time. That's why we want to know how many people are coming to the community for the first time. How many of these people are new? And the reason we do that is that we want people that are visiting the community for the very first time. This will tell you whether you have a good level of growth in the community, whether you have enough people to make that conversion funnel work. So we get the number of unique visitors per month, and you can get this data by Google Analytics. We multiply it by the percentage of them which are new visits, and we end up with the number of unique new visitors in that community. Can everyone just quickly know if that makes sense? Just a yes or no in the Skype group or the GoToWebinar control panel. This is going to be one of those lessons that really does combine the data side of things with the theory side of things. So is everyone good with this? Perfect. So a quick exercise, and I know some of you won't be able to do this. What we want to do is look at the number of unique new visitors to the community, and then the number of those people that register for the community. So if you have data to hand now, it'd be great to actually do this for yourselves. So look at the Google Analytics, get up the number of unique new visitors, multiply it by the number of new visits that you've received, and then look at how many people registered for the community during that time frame. So I can give you a few minutes to do this if you want. Otherwise, if you don't think you can do it right now, we can move ahead to the rest of the lesson and you can do it later. Hi, Will. Will, if you've just joined, we're going to our first exercise. We want to know the number of unique new visitors in our communities. We want to break it down month by month by unique visits and multiply it by the percentage of those that are new visits. So we know the number of unique new visitors in our communities. And then we want to look at how many people registered for the community during that time frame, during the last 30 days. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you are working on this now, and how many of you don't have this data to hand now? So Kirsten says 915 unique visits within the last 30 days and 17 new members. Of those 915 unique visits, how many of them were new visits? How many people were there for the first time? You can use Google Analytics for that. And then get that into a clear ratio. So I'm going to give everyone a little more time to do this. So Christian says 915 unique visits, 17% new visitors. So 17% of them were new visits, right? So when you multiply that by 915, what do you get? 915 times 17%. And then you also need to know the number of people that have registered for the community during that time. Okay, so you have 155 people that have visited your community for the first time. That is incredibly low. 155 people that have visited your community platform for the first time during the last month. And how many people registered during that month? For the registered members, this isn't usually tracked by Google Analytics. You can do it by looking at how many people go to the final confirmation page on a registration platform, but that's not always exact. But you can usually go into your community platform database, look at when people registered, and list them by the date joined. How is everyone else getting on with this? Chad doesn't have the data to hand. Marta doesn't know. Okay, guys, just sit tight for 1 second and I'll go through this with Kristen. Okay, so Kristen has 17 new members. So your ratio is basically 155 to 17 here. And if you turn that into a percentage, what do you get? 17 divided by 155. No, wait, that's the wrong way around. Sorry, 155 divided by 17. It's been a long day. So what that should give you is your ratio to work with. So what this should tell you is the number of unique new visitors that are becoming registered members. So if we go to an example from one of our clients, I think about a year or so ago, here you see the number of unique new visitors every 30 days. And then you can see what percentage of them registered for the community. And this gives us our registration percentage. So Kristen's is 9.11%. That's generally around what many communities are if they haven't spent a lot of time trying to optimize this. And what you can do when you track this over a long period of time is that you can test different interventions to see what makes a difference. So what you're seeing in this community, for example, in the bottom left, that even though they're being quite successful in getting more people to visit the platform for the first time, they're not doing a very good job of getting new people to register to join the community. And this is why it's important because you have to balance all of this. It's very easy to go on a big promotional campaign and get a lot of people to join that platform for the first time, but you also need to convert them into registered members of the community. And that usually means that when you allow or when you try to recruit more people, as we covered last lesson, you have to allow more time for converting them into regulars. The whole thing is integrated here. And what you do when you know this figure is that you can break it down and find exactly where people are dropping out. So we know, for example, that people in a community, they'll hear about the community and visit the platform. That's where our whole promotional and marketing efforts go. So they visit the platform to find something that they're interested in. When they find something they like, they click to register to join the community. And this is generally a standard way of doing it. It will vary by different platform. They enter the registration information, they get a confirmation message, and then they become a member when they click that link. So what we want to do is to break it down into these tiny steps that people take and find out exactly where people are dropping out. And here's where we can use Google Analytics to find out exactly where people are dropping out. And then we can make specific interventions to change this. So, for example, if you find that not many people are visiting the community, then that's clearly a growth issue, and it makes a lot more sense to do a lot of promotion based upon that. If we're finding that people aren't finding something that they like, it makes a lot of sense to target the type of members that are going to be most interested. To focus on attracting fewer people to the platform, but only those that have a strong relevancy to the concept of the community. Another thing we can do if they're not finding something that they like is to make sure that the latest content and activity is displayed prominently on the landing page of that community. Make sure that it's above the fold and occupies the most important places. If people aren't clicking to register to join the community, we might, for example, do what other community sites are doing, which is to prompt people to register to join the community when they either try to participate or after when they've clicked on a certain number of pages to the community. This is quite a powerful idea that works really well. Or another thing you might want to do is consider repositioning where the registration page is, tweak the the colors and the design and other things like that. I mean, there's so many things that you can test and find out eventually what's working and what's not. That's why we want to track the data on every single side of this. If people aren't entering their registration information, then we want to reduce the data required to complete this. We want to reduce the complexity of the question and usually just ask people for their email addresses and their username that they want to use. You rarely need more information than that. So we really want to simplify that as much as possible. And next, if they're getting the confirmation email, and even within that, there are different steps. So they open that confirmation message and then they click the link. If they're not clicking that link or they're not opening it, then we want to change the subject of that email. We might want to change who that email is from. So make it from a specific person instead of a generic "do not reply" message from the community. We might also want to reduce or tweak the email copy, or you want to highlight something in that email itself that people want to do in the community. Have an incentive for them, an activity within the community that makes them want to click that link. And this is an incredibly powerful thing. Most community platforms send out very bad generic confirmation emails. They should send out confirmation emails that are way more interesting and have something that people can do, something that people want to click on straight away. So for examples of registration forms, you can see that what's quite common now is simply to keep it as simple as possible, either to have a sign up link with Facebook or Twitter, or just to ask people for the bare minimum amount of information. You don't want people to sign up for your community to fill out all the membership profile questions. You just want them to get over this hurdle so you have the ability to contact them. We want to make sure that the latest activity and discussions shows up on the landing page of that community. We want to make sure that when people visit that platform, they can easily find something that they're going to be interested in participating in. So in the next question, and you won't be able to get the answer to this now, I don't think, is that you want to know what's the next step. When someone has clicked the link to register for that community, the next thing you want them to do is to participate in the community. You want them to go from being a registered member into being a participating member. Most organizations do a terrible job here. And out of all the interventions we make with our clients, the ones where we have the best success, the ones that are clearly the focus of a lot of our efforts, is to get the newly registered members participating as quickly as possible, because this is so decisive when it comes to determining if they're going to be a regular member or not. Most online communities have a huge amount of lurkers solely because they don't get people participating quickly enough. It's almost impossible to convert a lurker into a regular member of the community, especially to do that en masse. But if you focus your efforts when people first join the community, you can make the right sort of intervention there. You can put together a certain or a number of interventions that's going to get them participating in the community as quickly as possible. But to do that, first we have to know how many people that join the community actually participate in the community. And this is where it gets somewhat mathematical. So to do this, we have to have an accurate sample of registered members that participate. Now you could go through every person that joins your platform and look to see if they participate. But that's going to be a lot of work, especially if you have, say, 500 people that registered for the platform. But it will only take you around half an hour or so to go through 100 members, a sample of 100 registered members, and see if they participated. This won't give you a precise figure, but it will give you a very accurate figure. So by systematic sampling, what we mean is to list all the members that have joined your community by the date that they joined, and then divide that total number by 100, or divide that total number by 10, or whatever you can do, which you think is a manageable amount. So say it's every 10th member, and then look to see on every 10th member if they made their contribution to the community or not. The reason why you're doing it this way is so you don't bias it. So you don't pick the members that are likely to be more active. So you don't just look at the members that have joined in the last couple of days instead of a few weeks ago. So this gives you as accurate a sample as you can possibly get. So you want to know how many make a contribution. You also want to know where do they drop out during this process. Do they not click the confirmation link? Do they not visit the community page again? I mean, where exactly are they dropping out? Actually, before we move ahead, does this make sense to everyone? If you haven't done much work with statistics in the past, this can be kind of tricky. Is everyone good? Marta, are you there? Okay. I'm especially worried about you because I know you sometimes find the language a bit difficult. So once you know whether this is a problem or not, there are so many interventions that you can make here to convert more registered members into participants. So for example, the community manager, and one of the most common, the community manager can welcome someone to the community. Or you can have automated messages that go out to people when they join, or a couple of days later on, or a week afterwards to find out exactly where they are dropping out. Or, for example, you can change the post registration page. So when people click the confirmation link, or when people enter their information, what is the very next page that they're taken to? Then why don't you make that page that's designed for newcomers to the community? Why don't you highlight specific things that you want new people in the community to do straight away? There are some communities, especially some communities of practice or communities of interest, where they have a buddy system where people that are being regular members of the community or volunteers to the community take responsibility for these newcomers that have joined the community and get them engaged and active and participating in the community. Other things you can do is have a list of new members in the community and some personal details about them that they've entered, just so they feel comfortable participating. Or you might want to send them notifications of major events that are coming up, things that they can sign up for, things that they feel confident about taking their first steps into the community. There are also many online communities that create a specific area for newcomers in the community. These are areas that are designated for people that where they can ask the questions that come up a lot, questions that might seem very dumb to regular members of the community or people that have been in that topic for a long time. So you can create a special area for newcomers in the community to ask these sorts of questions. Other things that are quite common is to teach newcomers about the community. When people join a community, they have a certain fear of participating. They're worried that they might say the wrong thing, or they might say something that will make people look, or perhaps not look, but will make them think badly of them. So you can teach newcomers and guide them how to make their first contributions to the community. We will cover the welcome guide soon, which helps a lot with this. But the most important thing is that when people join a community, you need to get them participating as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to get them converting into regular members later on. So make sure there's something interesting for them specifically to do. Make sure in that confirmation email or those scheduled automated messages go out later on that there is something interesting for them to do. What you don't want to do is to have a confirmation email that looks like this. Let me ask you a question. What do you think is wrong with this? And I'm going to give you half a minute to read this. A lot of online communities, when you join them, they send out a message that's a lot like this. So what do you guys think is wrong with this confirmation email? Marta says it's too long. Yes, I think it is far too long. Will said too formal. Yep, I think that's correct too. Kristen says it doesn't ask people to do anything, just bookmark the page. So you're all right here. This confirmation email, it's far too long. It doesn't ask people to do anything meaningful or specific, and it's written in a really formal language. I mean, it doesn't even say who the email is from, just the simple K-12 team. This isn't what you want. What you do want is to have a confirmation email that says, congratulations, you're being accepted to join the community, or you've just joined the community. We would love your opinion on this debate, blah, 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 link. Keep it really short, really simple, really to the point, and get people interested in that topic. Get people in that mindset where they want to participate in the community as quickly as possible. So next up, we want to know what the conversion rate, and we're going to ask you to do this for the assignments that we do. So next up, we want you to know what the conversion ratio is from your participants, the people that contribute for the first time into the community, to those that become regular members of the community 6 months later. So this is really difficult to measure, but it's not impossible by a long way. But it is kind of complicated to grasp. So the way that we measure this is that we need to use a sampling technique. I don't know of any platform that will give you this data offhand. So we want to use a sampling technique again. We're going to use a stratified and then systematic sampling technique. So a stratified sampling technique is basically when you sample from different clusters of the audience that you're trying to reach. It's basically a quota system, but you make sure that that quota reflects the overall makeup of the community. So we want to know where people are dropping out in the community process. Is it after X number of contributions or after X amount of time? And then once we have those groups, we do that systematic again. We pick every nth person, so every third, every fifth, every 10th, or whatever, and check where they dropped out. What did they do? What did they not do? So we want to know where people are dropping out of the process. So here's what it looks like if you're using an Excel spreadsheet. So imagine you're looking at 100 people that have made their first contribution. And by sampling techniques, so you find that 57 are still active after 1 month, 37 are active after 2 months, 21 are still active after 3 months, 19 are still active after 4 months, 19 are still active after 5 months, and 15 are still active after 6 months. This gives you a percentage. So you can see what percentage of people drop out and where they drop out of this process. So we can also put this into graphs, as you see the graph in the bottom right. But this isn't enough because some people stay make say one post in the community every month, or some people make a lot of contributions within the first week and then disappear entirely. So we also need to correlate this with the number of contributions that members make. So, for example, we know, and I did this graph slightly wrong here. We know of 100 people that 100 people make between 1 to 5 contributions because this is the initial sample that we're using, members that have made their first contribution to the community. And then we look at how many make 6 to 10 contributions, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, 21 to 25, 26 to 30. So we want to know if they're still active after a certain number of contributions. What this tells us, for example, if you look at the months since joining again, we know that if we can keep members active for those first 3 months, then the level of people that stay regular members is likely to be considerably higher. So we can think, okay, what interventions can we make that will keep people active after 3 months? And we might plan out a whole journey and have some sort of ritual that members go through when they've been active in the community for 3 months. So they have a motivation to keep participating during that entire 3 month process. Or if they are active after a certain number of contributions, so we know that we lose many members before they've made their sixth contribution to the community, up to 53% here. So we can design out a period of interventions designed to get people making at least 6 contributions to the community. The guy that used to run FriendFeed, Brett Taylor, used to say that in his online community, if he could get people to make, say, 10 contributions or make 5 friends in that community, they were far more likely to stay regular members of that community indefinitely. And I think it was Mike, the person that runs the Nike Plus community a while ago, who said, if you can get people to log their first 5 runs, then they're likely to stay members of that community. So you want to be identifying here what hurdle you have to get people through to stay regular members of that community over the long term. Okay, so quickly, yes or no, is everyone okay with this? And please don't hesitate if you have any questions that you want to ask. So what we're doing essentially is sampling people that have made their first contribution, and then looking to see where they drop out. Is everyone good with this? Yes, no, maybe. Is everyone still awake? Okay, fantastic. So once we know this, we can plan a variety of different interventions to increase the number of participants, people that make their first contribution, that become regular long-term members of the community. So one of the things we might do is tinker with the notifications system, for example. We might change the content or the copy of that notification system. We might change the number of messages that people get when they receive those messages. We might change who those notifications are from, or what the subject line of those notifications are. So we might tinker a lot with that to see if it improves that ratio or not. Or we might increase the whole speed of the responses that people get to their messages. We might work with our insider group, which we'll cover a bit later on, to generally increase the speed of responses. So people that post a message receive their response at least within 12 hours and the maximum, because this speeds up the whole community. When people receive a response within 12 hours, they're likely to visit the community again and participate and get another response and participate. So you can speed up the whole online community. Or we might ensure that people are participating in the correct way. When people join the community, there might be a welcome guide that they receive that teaches them about the community and both the cultural education of the community. So who the top members are, what the topics that people are discussing, what do people generally think or feel about different things. So people gradually learn more about the community and they're more motivated to continue participating in that community. As an aside here, we generally find for community managers that it makes far more sense to welcome members that have made their first contribution than it is to welcome members that have just registered the community. But that's just an aside tip. We want to also change the characteristics of the response that members receive. So by the characteristics here, what we mean are people that receive the right type of response, ask another question, so invites them to come back and answer that question, and generally get past those first five contributions. As I mentioned earlier, there might be a ritual that members have to go through. Not a ritual as in a hazing sort of thing, but something that will get members in the mindset where they are generally feel part of that community. Perhaps access to a new area of the community, access to create content for the community, access to manage an area of the community, or to participate in a live discussion, or to have something that they only get after being an active member for a certain amount of time. Other things we might do is to make personal introductions, as I covered a second ago. So make the community manager introduce themselves to people that are in the community, or introduce members to the community. So if you have newcomers that are new to the community, obviously, then you can introduce them to the existing members of the community. And it's far easier to be introduced than it is to introduce yourself. We will also think about having content about the newcomers in the community. So what are members in the community doing? And we can create a lot of great content that's about them. So we can have a newcomer of the week or a profile of a new member. We can get people in the mindset that they want to continue participating because they might be featured in one of these places. Something else that works really well is giving newcomers to the community, people who have made that their first contribution, a level of ownership over something in the site. If they have a unique level of expertise or background, why don't you make them responsible for responding to discussions on that particular topic of expertise? I mean, there are many things you can do here. But when people have ownership over a tiny sliver of your community, they're likely to continue participating in that community as a result. And not only that, they're also likely to bring other people into that community and continue their participation as well. But the key thing throughout all of this is that you have to switch their motivations. If people come just for information, which many people will do when they first visit a community platform, you have to get them into the place where they're participating because it's their peer group, where they know who the other members of that community are. You have to get them into that mindset. And whether you do that by culturally explaining them about the community, you have to affect them at that psychological level that they want to be a part of this group identity. So that wraps up the lesson for today. We have a lot of time for any questions that you might have. Make sure that on this lesson that you do the recommended reading as well, because we go into far more depth than what we can cover just in this lesson. One of the things you're going to find the most difficult about this is getting the right data in the first place. But luckily we have some spreadsheets in this which we will share with you, which can help a lot. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Christian asks, is there a standard percentage that is accepted as a good amount of regular members? Of active members? That's a good question, but it's not a question that I typically agree with. I believe that the only people that are in a community are those that are active in it. So if they're not active, then I don't count them as members at all. I don't think there's a good percentage of people that register for community compared to people that use that platform. I just think there are things that a lot of community managers do wrong. So you might have heard that 99.1% rule, where most people that join a community don't participate in it. But that's usually the result of very lazy community management. If you attract the right sort of people to your online community, if you attract the sort of people that are really interested in that topic, and you make the right sort of interventions and you optimize this journey, you optimize every single step of it, you can blow that away. So it's far more important to focus on always improving this rather than trying to find any standard per, percentage that you can use. Does anyone else have any questions? Kristen says, "Thanks. Since I run a support community, I see some value in the lurkers that read, but I'm trying to convert everyone to be active." Well, look at what GIFGAF do. So GIFGAF had developed a very successful online community where people originally come to get support, but they're also socialized into that community. They also get to interact with other people in that online community. So you can see what steps that they're taking when you join, what you prompted to do, and get more into the habit or the spirit of that community, and then copy what they do because they do a really terrific job. Marta says, when you were talking of creating a space in the community for new members, you not run the risk of creating a ghetto if they don't create relationships with older members? Yes, to an extent, and that's why we don't always do it with our clients, or we don't always recommend it for clients. I like having a simple thread or a post somewhere where newcomers can choose to post if they want, and we give them a certain number of protection from the older members. But generally, this isn't always such a risk as what some people think. You have to realize that in every type of community, there are going to be cliques that exist. But it's important not that so much that members interact with the older members. That certainly helps. But people, when they join a community, find their own group within the community, whether that's a group of their fellow newcomers or people that are interested in a particular subtopic. They just need to find that group. Kristen asks, how do you know where people drop out in the process from Google Analytics? So what we covered in this lesson, and one of the key points of this lesson, is that you can't always rely on Google Analytics to tell you everything you need to know. You have to go beyond that and use it to track what pages people are visiting, for example. It's very good at telling you the early conversion ratios and helping there. But if you want to know how many people in your community made their first contribution, Google Analytics won't help you with that. You have to go beyond that and use more advanced spreadsheets than that. Anyone else have any questions? Rita, if you're here, would you like to explain a little bit about what's coming up next week and anything else that they need to know?
Yeah, hi everyone. Just to let you know that next week we'll have another guest webinar on Wednesday, this time with Patrick O'Keefe, and you will be able to watch the webinar that we did last night with Blaze. If you weren't able to attend, that'll be on the student site. You'll also find on there the transcript from this week's live Skype discussion, and we'll hold another Skype discussion on Tuesday as well at the same time. And over the next couple of days, we will send out details about the final compulsory assignment of the course. And as soon as you get that, if you do have any questions, please feel free to come back to us as soon as possible and just basically get going with it. There will be a deadline for it, so keep that in mind, but we'll highlight that to you on the course materials. And though Module 2 is running a week behind, you will find the lesson materials for the first 4 weeks online as of Monday. I hope that's not too confusing, but if you do get confused at all, please let me know. But it was just for anyone that wanted to keep going with the reading, because you did have an extra week from last week's webinar not going ahead. And I think that's all just now.
Yeah, I would really attend that webinar with Patrick O'Keefe because he is terrific at what he does. He's also got a very high level of expertise in monetizing online communities. So if that's the topic, how to make money from your online community, then he's a terrific person to speak to. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. We'll wrap up the webinar for today. If you have any questions or anything that you need help with, then please contact us. Remember that you have unlimited access to our coaching. So if you ever want personal help on something specific to your online community, then please don't hesitate to ask. and we will do everything we can to help. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.